Welcome to episode 183 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week we start our 5-part Life is Strange True Color series with episode 1.
You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club.
Welcome to the Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have 4 friends with me. The first friend, you know her, you love her. Her name is Katie Lesperance.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm great. We're going to talk about some hijinks.
At the moment, I'm feeling out her emotions.
No.
It's Flora Marigold.
Hello. Am I already being attacked this early into the episode?
Yes, absolutely. You have a practically an aura around you at the moment. Our next 2 friends are co-hosts of the Lukewarm Games podcast. Let's start with the also host of Crossplay Conversations, Luke Lewis. Hi.
Hi. Hello. Yes. Host podcast?
That's it. And I don't know why I went that high, but we're going to keep going with it.
Excellent.
And for the first time on the show, Claire Helmberger, hello.
Hello. Happy to be here.
We thought we had you on this program before, but we have not. So you're going to run the gauntlet. Get ready.
All right.
Are you ready for it?
I am ready for the gauntlet.
Sweet. We're going to get into that business in 1 minute, But before we do that, I want to have you do 3 things. 1, hey, if you like this podcast, if you listen to us for all these years and you haven't given us a review yet, please give us a review. It actually helps. Send this podcast to a friend maybe, and then follow us on at Left Behind Club on Twitter. We will not call it the other thing because that's where we're going to be posting updates about what's coming up. Some of us are going to be at PAX West, so if you're going to be there, just know that there's going to be a little episode after that. So beyond Life is Strange, you get a PAX episode and maybe some other stuff, right, Katie?
Yeah, always. This is the place to be.
All right.
Just come on back.
It's Gauntlet time. Claire, you're going to run the Gauntlet. We're going to ask you some questions about your gaming habits and loves and dislikes so people can get to know you. The first question, before actually I need someone to bang the gong for me. Flora, do you want to bang the gong for me?
Gong!
Excellent. Claire, have you ever pretended to be sick to get out of something so you could play a video game?
Yes, that is how I got so good at Mario Kart.
Which Mario Kart?
Mario Kart Wii.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Did you use the steering wheel that you could buy to go with it?
I did not, because I was not as good on that, and I wanted to... I was on leaderboards. I was, like, really competitive.
Mario Kart esports is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely was, like, national champion at one point. No, I'm just kidding. But,
okay. What's your earliest gaming memory?
I remember when we were gifted a PlayStation 2, and no one in our family really knew anything about PlayStation 2. That's probably not the earliest memory, but it was a pretty strong one. So we got a smattering of games, and we just got really into Kingdom Hearts, which was way more difficult than any of us really little ones were ready for at that time.
Not quite simple and clean, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. They
God.
thought it was like a kid game because it had the Disney characters in it, and we had a really hard time.
But the story, I'm sure, really resonated with you as a youngster, right?
Claire, I know the answer to this question, but what game have you spent the most hours on?
It's actually probably Skyrim.
Oh, not Subnautica.
No. Probably Skyrim, and then probably Animal Crossing would come after that, and then Subnautica. Okay.
I feel like Subnautica would win for complete playthroughs, like the game you've replayed the most, maybe?
I played a lot of Skyrim in high school. Like, I had so many different files. I kept trying to get to level 100. I did not, but it's okay.
What is your most controversial gaming opinion?
Subnautica is better than Starfield.
Okay, you've played them both a lot of hours, right? How many hours have you put in Starfield?
Oh, actually, probably not that many. Like, maybe 70.
Maybe 7.
Just a casual 70.
I was expecting like a 20 to 30 answer there after that little preface, and then 70. Bam.
Well, the hour clock is weird because it does it in days. Hold on. So I have done.
We're doing some quick calculations here for the audio listeners.
Oh man, that's not right. Anyway, I'll have to double check.
It's a
It's probably about 70. Yeah.
It's a significant number.
Yeah.
That's almost 3 days.
That feels right.
Last question, a very important one for folks not who are guesting on the show, but not on our list of questions here. Who is the superior Mario brother? Is it Mario or Luigi?
So in Super Mario Galaxy, Luigi is harder to control, and that was the bane of my existence as a childhood. But like in terms of like Riz, it's definitely Luigi.
Love it.
You gave such a non-answer there. I love it. You're like both, kinda.
It depends on what you're looking for. You're looking for, is it from a gameplay standpoint or a character standpoint? I guess.
There's a brother for everyone, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Love. Well, hey, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for coming through the gauntlet. I hope it wasn't too painful. If you want to hear Luke on his past episodes, he was on episode 117 for Batman Arkham Origins and 166 for Coffee Talk. We are starting this 5-parter about Life is Strange. True Colors, developed by Deck 9, published by Square Enix, available on all the things: PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series S, PC Stadia, and Nintendo Switch. Originally released on September 10th of 2021. I've spoken enough, so it's time to go to the fast pitch, which is our 1-sentence description of a video game that we are about to play. Who wants to go first and give their description of Life is Strange True Colors? Even though 2 of us here haven't played it yet, but let's try. Katie, do you want to go first?
I will. Life is Strange True Colors is just what if empathy, but extreme.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Flora?
I think my fast pitch is just the gay agenda.
Very good. Good.
Love it.
We love. Claire?
I definitely think Life is Strange True Colors is a postcard with gameplay.
Ooh. I have many questions, but I'll save them for later. Luke?
I'm gonna go with a coming-of-age tale that's equal parts punk rock and small-town charm.
Love it.
Very good. And I'll just say the CW, Deck 9 made a CW game. For
Excellent.
the non-Americans on listening to the podcast are going to be like, what's the CW? But that doesn't matter. Before we talk about this game in particular, it's split up into 5 episodes, but it also has other games in the series. So what I'd love to know is everyone's history with the Life is Strange games. Maybe I'll start with Flora on this one. Have you played others in the series? If so, do you like them? What's your favorite? Let me know.
Yeah, so the Life is Strange games have been near and dear to my heart for as long as I've really been thinking about games. I've replayed all of them at least once, and we've obviously done a podcast series on the original Life is Strange games. I've written articles about probably like every episode of the Life is Strange games, including like the DLC episodes. So huge fan. I have a lot of issues with the series, but it's definitely like a soft spot. Like I love replaying these on a cozy rainy day.
We'll make sure to link out the those episodes. They start at 138, but we'll link them all in the resources. Claire, as a guest, what's your history with this one?
Yeah,
With
so
the series?
Luke and I played Life is Strange, the first one, together, and we loved it. And we played the, we started Before the Storm, but we didn't, I don't think we finished that one. And we didn't play the second one, but we also played Tell Me Why, which is like in the universe.
Ish.
It's a Deck 9 game. Right?
Yeah. I believe.
Yeah,
same
so.
people.
Yes.
And we also played, obviously, Life is Strange True Colors, and just love it so much. So, yeah, I think this is my favorite of all the ones we've played.
Is Remember Me technically part of the same universe made by Don't Nod?
I don't think it's officially there, but there are some like references between those games.
Okay.
And then there's Captain Spirit?
Yeah,
Is that
The Adventures of Captain Spirit.
Yeah, that's like...
It's like a standalone.
But leads into 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that character shows up at, I think, episode 2 or 3 of the second game.
And it is fair to call out really quickly here that there's really, like, this game is a standalone, but there is one major character that is from before the storm, correct?
Right. There's the character Steph, who we meet in episode 1 of True Colors. And Steph, there's this fun kind of, I don't know if it's even optional or not. It's a D&D scene that takes place in Before the Storm, which is like a prequel to the original Life is Strange. I can feel myself pulling the red yarn to each little thumbtack as I make these connections. But you play D&D with these characters and kind of move on with your life. And it's just like a side incident almost that then got fleshed out. I think Steph became sort of like a fan favorite. And she has her own episode that's sort of bundled in with this game if you got like the Ultimate Edition.
And that's wavelengths, right?
Correct, yeah.
Cool. Katie, is your Life is Strange history as extensive as these folks'?
It is not. And I'll correct myself. Don't nod. Tell me why. Not Deck 9.
Fair.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yes. I have played the OG Life is Strange. Really enjoyed it. I liked, getting together and discussing it too on the pod. Was always like, I'll play more of them, but have not gotten around to it yet. So I have only played the OG.
Okay. I'm in the same boat as you where I've only played the OG, but I own Before the Storm and also this game. I just so happened it was on the shelf, so I was like, let's just grab it and play it. So, Katie, just to recap, you and I, this is our first time through. Luke, Claire, Flora, this is a second playthrough for y'all.
Correct.
And Luke, do y'all usually play them together? Or do you have any like others that you secretly played without telling Claire?
I don't have any that I secretly played. I think when it comes to the like narrative choose your own adventure style games, we tend to play them together, and one of us will like take turns being in control, and then we'll debate the choices and like discuss afterwards. So it's kind of like we're watching a interactive TV show or having a little like movie date night.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of how we treat these games.
And when you played it the first time, and this is a question for Flora, Luke, and Claire, did you play them all straight, or did you really play it like a TV show where you're like, we're going to play one episode per night and not binge them?
We definitely broke it up like where it felt natural to us with like our stamina. I think there were probably a couple times where we like went straight to the next episode because we really wanted to know what happened next. Like I think from episode 1 to 2, we did not pause. I think we kept going because we wanted to see what happened.
I think so. But otherwise, I think we kind of spaced it out. I think we were enjoying it so much, they were like, we didn't want to play it like late into the night. We wanted to like experience it in a rested mindset and not rush it.
I definitely take the opposite approach on that. I binge these games as quickly as I can. The only exception to that would have been the second game, because that was released episodically when I had like pre-purchased the whole thing. So I was forced to wait every couple of months. But for this replay, I am going to space it out and play it like either the day of or the day before. And I'm going to try and get my partner to like play it with me as well for similar reasons.
Cute.
So
hopefully that'll be with you the first. She play this episode with you? No.
No. For time reasons, it was just me this time. But I'm willing to sit through it again. So
maybe do some different choices.
There's not that many in episode 1. I just got to say that, like right now, having played the first one, we all have played the first one. I think episode 1 is a little underwhelming with like the choices that it offers you. But we can get to that when we dissect this a little more.
I think it's maybe fair for those who are uninitiated to talk about maybe the mainstays or things that you would come to expect in a Life is Strange game, perhaps besides, the gay agenda, which we already called out. I think there's maybe 2 things. There is, hey, it is a choice-based game, much like a Telltale game. And then also, having not played all of them, I'm going to make an assumption here. But my assumption is that every time one of the characters has some sort of supernatural ability that is different in each game, but gives the player a leg up or gives them more information. Is that a fair thing to say about the series?
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. Great. Excellent. The game opens in Haven Springs, which is in Colorado. In the game, you play as Alex Chen. Alex essentially walks up to town. There's a beautiful town in front of her. There's a bridge, beautiful flowers, and she's there to meet her brother, who she's not seen in many, many years. The thing that I appreciated really quickly is how beautiful this game is. I am playing it deliberately in performance mode, which is a higher frame rate mode. It looked great on a 4K television, and I will not lie to you, I was actually very surprised at how good this game looked. Because they aren't typically lookers.
No, they're not. I think that the way that this game is a looker, as you would call it, is more like the setting.
That was gross, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little. I didn't know how to feel about it. More like the setting. Like, I feel like a lot of detail is put into Colorado and the mountains and how like majestic everything looks. And also Colorado, great state. Canadian. I've visited a handful of states. One of my favorite trips into the U.S. I've ever taken. Denver's lovely. And I was like, yeah, this is capturing like Colorado mountain vibes very, very well. Like, it made me like wistful. Like, I was like, oh yeah, that was a good trip. It brought me back. But like, as far as, I don't know, resolution, like facial detail, it's not like Death Stranding here. But yeah, I think like the ambiance and the setup and the location is beautiful.
Yeah. It, as a non-American, it gave me PN Dubs vibes, but it's not the Midwest. It's almost like, and you guys, Americans are going to laugh at me, it's like the Midwest and PNW had a baby. That's what Colorado seems to me as someone who's never been.
Do people say PNW? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've never heard
Ask
that before.
Luke and Claire, the PNW folks.
Yes, or PNWers. Okay, good to know.
I mean, that kind of makes sense because it's in between the West.
I think that's
and
a
the
fair
Midwest.
Geographic breakdown.
It's got the kind of like progressive, but then also nature. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can buy weed and smoke it in the mountains, right?
Right.
And then you can go hunt deer. Yeah.
Through this series, I think it's going to be fair to say that we are not going to cover the beat-to-beat action of each thing that happens in the episode, and really just talk about, one, the major themes, and two, the major moments here. But before we move to maybe one of the first major incidents that happens in this episode, I'd love to know if there are any highlights walking through town, checking out the floral shop, the record store, meeting Ethan. Any highlights y'all want to cover before we talk about the incident?
I think one thing that stood out to me, having this being my second go through of the episode, when you play Wavelengths, which is a standalone episode that mostly takes place in the record shop, you end up getting to know that record shop really intimately in a way that episode 1 doesn't really give you access to. Like, there are some areas that are locked and closed off to you, including like a recording booth and like a storage closet and kind of behind the desk and the cash register, these little areas. I thought it was really strange to come back around and, oh no, I'm already doing it in this episode with the word strange. I thought it was really peculiar how going back into the record shop on the replay of the game, I felt this fondness for the space that I'm going to imagine that any one of you playing for the first time maybe didn't immediately feel. You're walked through a number of these little locations like the flower shop you mentioned, and I think they're all like atmospheric, but one in particular, the record shop really feels kind of like home, and it felt more like coming home than when Alex ends up going to like her new apartment later in the episode. So just a little footnote that I think that players who have played Wavelengths might pick up on, but other than that, I don't know if it would be special.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll add on to that too, having now replayed the episode. It's just as a really lived-in world that feels nice to get back to, and seeing characters that I remember fondly from our initial playthrough, but I felt really positive about just the world and the overall vibe of the game on my initial playthrough. I remember feeling, especially with the scene where Alex is on the bridge and you're listening to the music and you can kind of just sit there as long as you want. I just found myself just like vibing out and enjoying the moment and really taking in the environment around me. And
Yeah.
I don't remember feeling that same way about previous Life is Strange games. Like, this one really felt just like authentically genuine in its approach to like, here's a town, here's a group of people, here's them interacting together.
Definitely.
If I compare and contrast the two games that I played, so Life is Strange 1 and this, I think the difference between them is that the characters, you got very much a small town vibe. Everybody knows each other. Everybody's got a backstory, which is something that I don't exactly remember that being the thing that I was most fond of when I played episode 1 of that game, where I was, as soon as I met a character, I started to understand what their background was, how they were tied into the town, what they loved, because they spent a lot of time with each character, which I'm assuming is going to be a thing that is going to be important for future episodes. Not to say I was disappointed with the town itself, but I think like characters over town. The one last thing I'll say is we'll talk about the apartment a little bit later, but I got the reason I mentioned the CW is I got big Life Unexpected vibes, the Britt Robertson like CW show from maybe like 10 or 12 years ago. About 14 years ago actually, because I'm old. And that just like it made me feel good and warm inside because I really love that show.
I think that you're right, Jacob, to pick up on like some of the differences in how like backstory and characterization is established in episode 1 of each game. I wonder if that really has to do with just like high school archetypes being the premise of the first game, whereas this one, there's not exactly the same sort of archetypes, although I can't really speak to the CW content you're referencing. I think that opens up a lot of like interesting design choices with the levels too, because the original Life is Strange, you'll have like a high school corridor or like a dorm corridor. These are like very linear spaces. The town feels immediately like kind of sprawling, even though it's really compact, and there's these like artificial like you can't go here's. But I think that like both in terms of the characters you're given and also like the environments that are then like plotted out around those characters, I think that the setting makes a huge difference for that.
Yeah, along with what you're saying, is that this one just feels to me more, it's more adult, even though it is still a coming of age story. Like I said, that Life is Strange, the original was a college? No, what is it? Is it high school or college? School. I still didn't know. While I was playing the first one, I was like, am I in high school? Boarding school. There you go. That one was more like, it felt more like a high school TV drama where it's like we have our roles. We have the popular girl. We have the rich guy who's kind of obnoxious. We have the shy girl who has some problems. We have the teacher who's kind of weird. That goes places. But this one felt more like, there are more adults around everyone. The problems felt less stuck in adolescence and more like, what do you do post adolescence and like trying to find your way afterwards, which I just think is more interesting. I don't know that I'm grabbed yet, I have to say. Like, I'm not... I think I'll get there. Like, there are seeds there, and I think I will really end up enjoying it. But right now, I'm kind of like feeling the like ingredients being thrown in, and like the writing choices of like, oh, here's this character, we're gonna meet this one, and I'm like seeing the work rather than really feeling everything so far. And yeah, I think that'll change as I get more invested in the story like develops. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Maybe it just really helped me that all the adult characters are hot. Everybody's hot.
Taste
Ryan
the rainbow, Jacob.
I guess. Jacob is way hornier than I am, clearly. Because I'm like, are they? I'm like, oh, I guess they all are, yes. And Jacob's like, yes, they're hot.
I mean, Steph and Ryan, just the vinyl shop sort of repartee that they have, I'm just like, hot. And so I guess I'm just excited for later. Even the florist Riley, also hot. Just everyone looks well constructed. If I'm taking like a sculpturist's perspective
like
on this.
Cheekbones and jawlines and
so many cheekbones and jawlines.
Can't leave out Jet on that list. Am I right?
Oh yeah, Jet's kind of hot too.
Jed had almost cartoonish cheekbones.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, Jed doesn't look like a person, but yes, he is.
Anyway, I can't be horny about an old man here, where this is too early. One thing that I think is fair to note here is we haven't talked about Alex's ability, which is going to come in handy when we talk about the thing that happens next. But she has this aura ability where she can sort of sense, and we'll just go over it briefly, is like she can sense people's auras and the emotions that come with that aura. So essentially, you'll look at a character in your aura mode and they'll be, surrounded by a particular color. And when they're surrounded by that color, you can sort of also hear their thoughts and what those thoughts sound like. Are they angry? Are they nervous? Are they, anxious? Are they happy? I love this ability, and I think it's just going to lend itself to, in the first game, that rewind ability really can just take you many places. But I think even her aura ability is going to keep you quite grounded. Is that a fair assessment? People who played it already?
Yeah, I think so.
You're like, just wait.
Well, sure. I'm like threading lightly to not do any like future spoilers or things, but
Right.
I think on paper, when I first heard the ability of this game, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure like how
it feels very
compelling
passive.
Yeah, I was like,
Right?
how
It's
compelling
very-
will the gameplay of that be? But I think once you sit down with it, I think it really intrinsically ties itself into the narrative in really interesting ways and kind of represents that character's like emotional journey in a meaningful way, which I think makes it really compelling.
I think that almost weaving together Katie's earlier concern about like episode 1 maybe not grabbing you right away, I think the powers aren't exactly set up in the most compelling way in episode 1 either. I almost want there to be what Life is Strange 2 did, where you see like some sort of accident happen or some sort of like explosion that happens in response to these powers being used, and then like cut to black, and then we could start the game where the game starts in true colors. But we never really see the full capacity of Alex's colors, at least not by the end of episode 1. The closest thing we get is the physical confrontation between Alex and Gabe and Mac. But apart from that, I think that that's one of those like little dial tweaks I might have made with episode 1 just to get you hooked in a little more.
Yeah.
You mentioned the confrontation. Do you want to sort of set the table for that?
So basically, midway through the episode, Gabe, Alex's brother, walks her up to her new sort of apartment, which is like upstairs in the Black Lantern, which is this like community tavern. And you hear earlier in the flower shop that Riley's on-again, off-again partner, Mac, is basically... They're not really sure, but they're currently dating, so you sort of know it's a turbulent relationship. Boom, 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 there's a knock at the door. It's Mac, and then he just starts swinging on Gabe.
And then Alex obviously, starts to take those emotions in herself. And, as Mac is beating Gabe up, you get the prompt on your stick to push your left stick forward, and then you sort of insert yourself into the fight. And I won't mince words. She beats the crap out of Mac. I loved it.
Big bad wolf.
Yeah, she is. I should probably not love it, but I kind of loved it. Katie, as a first-time player, like, were you taken aback in this moment?
Not particularly.
Okay.
I didn't feel extremely conflicted about it. Because I'm like, yeah, defend your brother. And then once she's, thrown the, like, 13th punch, I'm like, okay. So it's time for someone to intervene here. But I wasn't like, oh no, what is she going to do? That was where the first interesting thing of like, oh, not only does she perceive the emotions and thoughts of others, but they add that layer in that strong emotions almost like take her over and swell within her. That was interesting. I'm like, okay, we're building on this. We have places to go. We have different things we can kind of do with these powers as far as storytelling. Yeah, no, I didn't feel conflicted at all. I was like, go for it. Let's throw some punches.
Did you guys feel a certain way about it, Luke Claire? Maybe even on your second playthrough?
I mean, I think it was, for me at least, less about like hurting Mac because that guy, and more to do with like and it's kind of been hinted at, especially if you like open up the journal and look through stuff, that there have been incidents in the past where she has lost control and then like been kicked out of a home or lost friends or whatever, and so it, you start to feel like connected to the town and attached to the characters and like hopeful, and then it's like you hope that she doesn't lose that in that moment.
This is almost one of those areas where I wonder if this could have been a player choice where you can somehow like restrain your powers, because the game opens up where Alex is sort of being released from, I guess, therapy or something that has to do with processing her emotions, or at least what we can discern as her like superpower. If you could withhold, her violent outbursts in this moment, and then like Gabe gets kind of knocked around a little more because he's getting hit pretty hard, like knocked onto furniture, like head banging into the corner, like etc. I can imagine, could have emerged, with a couple, like a black eye and like a broken rib, and then he could have like, hobbled up to Alex and be like, you really should have intervened, and then Gabe will remember that. Like, that could have happened, but it didn't. And I thought it was really interesting that the powers introduction is just sort of linear.
And also that the game so far maybe doesn't rely on QTEs, which is sort of a trope of the genre.
Yeah. I think that as far as player agency, it would have helped, because I found that in this, especially this chapter, I had a very small amount of agency in my decisions. I really felt like I was watching a story with like the occasional little tweak, but like very small changes. But then it would have given me more agency, but then I feel like it would have jumped ahead in Alex's progression. Like, I feel like where we are is that she has not figured it out yet. And like, that's been made very clear. And like, she's stepping out into the world for the first time. And if she could already kind of control those emotions, and I'd be like, well, where are we going to go for the rest of the story? So I don't know, there'd be pros and cons for me for making that a decision.
I definitely agree with that.
Katie, I think your point is very poignant, and playing this episode was the most, I mean, I've only played 2 Life is Strange games, but like, it was the one that made me think the most of Supermassive's games, because this is very much the same thing they always do in a Dark Pictures game, or even some of their larger titles, where you are going to play a prologue to learn how to play the game, and regardless of what happens, your character always eats it. Spoilers for every game made by Supermassive, I guess, but your character always eats it in service of, we are going to teach you the game, and then also we have this event that sort of kicks off the action.
To that point, one of the first big decisions that we have is when you meet the little boy. Little boy's name. Ethan, thank you. And then you get to know Ethan, and he's like, yeah, I go into the mines because this is an old mining town. And you're like, oh, that sounds like a bad idea. And he's like, no, it's cool. I'm totally safe. Don't worry about it. And then you see signs around town that are like, there's blasting going to happen in the mines. Be careful. And you're like, well, this is just lining up perfectly for disaster. And then you get the choice to tell Gabe whether or not Ethan going to the mines or not. And I was like, well, this is very early in the game to me to have any serious consequences to anything. Whereas if it was late in the game, I probably would have told Gabe and been like, this is a bad idea. I need to save this kid. But I'm like, it's so early in the game. I'm like, Ethan will be fine. And I like want to be buddies with Ethan, and I don't want to betray his trust. So I'm like, because of the context of when this decision is happening, I am going to keep this secret. But it may have been different otherwise. Because, yeah, at the beginning, you don't typically have crushing consequences to your decisions when they're at first teaching the game.
Pun intended.
Do you feel like you're the only person in your circle who wants to go deep about video games regularly?
We were like that too. Until now.
Welcome to Crossplay Conversations, the brand new bi-weekly topical video game podcast from Luke Lewis,
Joseph Hooper,
and Jacob McCoy.
With many years of breaking it down separately on shows like the Left Behind Game Club, Player Podcast, and Lukewarm Games, the gang is finally coming together to publish their gaming group chat in audio form every other week.
Expect roundtable reviews of the latest games, profiles of upcoming indies, and insightful conversations about essential topics in the video game industry. All with a mostly positive, insightful, and fun style.
Help us out by subscribing on your podcast platform of choice to get the first episodes delivered straight to your feed.
And follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos for updates about the show.
Cheers and happy gaming.
It's fair to say at this point, if you haven't played Life is Strange True Colors, we're going to spoil the entire episode 1. But I guess this is your formal spoiler warning that from here on, we're spoiling what happens, so buckle up, buckos. Before we move and talk about kind of the last part of the episode, or maybe some of the events that happened near the end, I do want to compliment the apartment to say like how much detail was in it and how it felt like really nice and lived in. And by golly, I'm a sucker for a creep acoustic cover. I don't know about y'all.
Just you wait.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just you wait.
Once again, trying not for future spoilers. The music in this game is very good.
Very good music.
I will say that. Yeah. Can we talk about the air guitar scene?
Please.
That's like my favorite
Yes.
thing ever. Just like such good vibes, and it's really funny. And I don't know if y'all, there's a streamer mode in this game when it came out, and it's a favorite memory of mine in terms of streamer modes in games, because when this game came out, the streamer mode is just silent when there's music. There's not like an instrumental or like a public domain thing. There's not like anything replacing it. So for that air guitar moment, I remember Lucy James did a stream of the game and just dead silent air guitar. And it's my favorite thing.
And there are games, and you've played one that has a more successful streamer mode. If I remember correctly, Pacific Drive has a good streamer mode.
Yeah,
right?
like they made original music that you can use that fits the tone, fits the vibe, but isn't licensed. So yeah, there are definitely games that do it well, but it was just so funny that this game was just like, no, silent.
Well, maybe they'll figure it out for double exposure. Who knows?
We'll see.
We will see. Beyond the apartment, if there's anything else, please call it out. But you make your way down to the bar, and you end up, essentially telling Jed. I never remember his name. Jed.
Please clap.
Please clap for me. That hey, a lie was told that I've done a lot of serving, and Alex has never done serving. So you have a small fun choice there of like, do you continue the lie, or do you just tell him like, hey, I don't know how to do this, please teach me, which is a nice moment between Alex and Jed. But want to see if you had any highlights in the bar, because I think the confrontation with Mac is probably my favorite part of the episode, weirdly.
The confrontation in the bar?
In
like
the bar,
after the fight? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the follow-up. And I'll set it up really quickly. His face is bruised real bad, and he essentially comes up to you, the slime ball that he is. Good call out, Claire, about how we feel about this man. But he comes up and says, hey, my relationship's on the rocks. If my partner finds out that this happened, she's going to break up with me for sure. So, like, can you please lie on my behalf? And I was very sassy as my Alex to be like, nah, you literally did this, bro. Like, this is your fault. If she asks about it, I'm not going to lie, you doof. I'm assuming everybody here called out the worm, but was there any other person that didn't, that sort of sided with him and said, nah, bro, I got your secret?
Not a soul.
He trash.
No.
Yeah.
No, 'cause like I'm going to protect the like codependent, overly jealous, clear potential for like abusive relationship of some kind, whether physical, emotional, regardless. I'm like, you just seem like a bad partner. Why would I help you?
Yeah,
Why? I'm going to tell her that you didn't do that? No, you're Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I'm pretty sure that's what Claire and I did the first time too, and you would think like, oh, second playthrough, let's try the different thing, but in those moments it's like,
Can't do
morally,
it.
that's not what our
compass
Alex is
can't
doing.
let us.
This is not true to the character. We can't betray or trust.
I don't know. I think that this does definitely feel like a prologue in terms of what your actions actually, how they affect the world. But I do think you're building like the foundational relationships and like the, so and so, remember this later. I don't know. I'll be interested to see what sort of impact, because I do think we made some slightly different choices this time around with the more like nuanced things that didn't seem like they were really controversial. So I'll be curious to see how that affects maybe the future.
There was one that I caught this time around where Charlotte, Gabe's partner, noticed Alex's tattoo, and I said it was a falling star, which I didn't realize at the time was like, oh, I'm feeling pessimistic about Haven. And so now I'm like, oh, interesting, because that I don't think we did the first go around. So I'm interested to see if that has any ripple effects in terms of like if she thinks you're like sad or upset to be there.
I really liked the exchange with Steph that happens in the bar when Alex is walking around. There's this, dare I call it, mini game of sorts where you look at Steph's shot, which is, I want to say it's like a bedazzled kiwi schnapps or something. Yep. And just heck of a sales pitch there, but I guess it's not selling. So Jed is giving it away with like a jukebox game where you have to narrow down yes or no questions. And there's 20 options of what song that Steph could be picking here. I don't really remember that taking much of my attention when I first played this, but I spent I was going through it like fine-tooth comb, and I was weirdly proud of myself for getting it right. But I didn't know. It seems like this was also a hit with the rest of you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Oh yeah. I was like, oh, this is a puzzle? Great. Give me a puzzle where you can flip through and strategize how you're going to do it. My favorite thing about that is one of either the album or the song title. No, I think it was a band. Regardless, one of the titles was I Was Saying Boo Earns, which is an old Simpsons reference where Mr. Burns, because they're booing him, and he's like, are they saying boo? Or Boo Earns, and he's like, Smithers like, of course they're saying Boo Earns, of course they love you, and I was like, it's such a random little reference to stick in there, whereas a lot of the other references are like kind of big and like Creep by Radiohead and stuff like that. But I was like, that's a weird little thing that hits right in my little demographic wheelhouse, and I liked it a lot.
I have a very important question. Having just played Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, I regretted not having my notebook next to me to make notes and like really go at it. So I sort of took like a 50-50 guess and didn't get it correct and took the shot. I want to know, like, between y'all, who took the shot? Was it just me?
I also took the shot. Claire had gone to bed though, so she's not to blame for my...
I played it again, I did not have to take the shot.
Of course. That checks out.
So what you're saying is the boys lose here, right?
Correct.
We just love kiwi schnapps. What can I say? It's so quenching.
Bedazzled, excuse me.
Sorry.
It's a very important detail. There's also the opportunity where you meet some of the folks that work for the mine, as well as the entrepreneur, Duckie, which I didn't know what he did until I looked it up later, but of course he called himself an entrepreneur.
Wait, what does he do?
Do you guys want to say?
I don't.
Does
know
he run a strip
remember.
joint? That's my guess right now. Is he runs a strip joint?
No, he's a taxidermist. He's a retired taxidermist.
You were like waggling your eyebrows around, and I was like, oh, what is it?
I just love that.
I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I love that he like signed off his text message to Alex with his full name, and it's like Reginald something the third. It's like chef's kiss.
Mm-hmm. Did y'all spend a lot of time in the phone and like social network features of? Because I weirdly did too. I'm usually like, I'm gonna speed through, but I spent the time in the text messages, and I really loved it. I think my favorite, and I'd love to know if y'all had any highlights in the phone, but mine was talking to their therapist. And essentially, you know, them wishing them well, and then Alex blocking the therapist, which I think was like, ooh, interesting. Okay.
Spicy, yeah.
Very spicy.
There's a lot of things in those old messages to kind of read into, and I like that some of the things aren't super spelled out, right? There isn't that conversation with the therapist. It doesn't have like a concluding line that says why she then blocked her. Like, no, it just is. So you read into that what you will. I thought was really interesting is someone that she used to know who she was staying at his house, his apartment for a little bit, and then some type of like sexual relationship was had. And then afterwards, Alex basically said that she didn't feel right about it, that she didn't want to pursue that. It went too fast. And then the other person's response was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. I read all the signs. I thought that you were in, so on and so forth. But then at first I was just like, oh, that's a terrible situation. And then when you look at it afterwards, after the whole situation with Mac and also Ethan later, you can kind of read into that if another person is having very, very strong emotions, that kind of filters over to Alex, whether she wants that or not. So if someone else is feeling, like lustful and like is pursuing like this sexual interaction, and Alex doesn't necessarily want to, that could still come over to her and then lead to that situation where she's in that, and she may appear to be consenting because she kind of is, but doesn't want to be. And how difficult that would be just in relationships. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, it made her whole situation a lot more difficult. And like, it broadened how many issues can come up with the power that she has, and how tricky things could be. But yeah, so I was like, there's so much in this phone of like little things like that you could really think about. And it's not just surface level stuff. So I thought there was really great writing in that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take. I hadn't even interpreted it that way, but that's like makes a lot of sense and adds extra depth to it. And
yeah,
on top of that, I just thought the whole use of the phone was a really awesome way to get us into her backstory without like having to have a like prologue to the prologue exposition. Like, it was just, I think, really tastefully done. And I liked the stuff about like there was the text message thread with, I imagine, like her foster sibling at one of her homes that she was in, and then like a close friend she made and different things. And yeah, so lots of different types of relationships, which was cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if it was an email or it was like a letter, but also even one of her past foster parents being like, hey, I wasn't ready for you. I'm so sorry. I hope you would forgive me, which was like, and even, beyond the phone, there were a lot of fun resources. Like, the world it was surprisingly dense. Maybe I just went in with lowish expectations, given I don't remember Life is Strange 1 being as dense as this game. But even going through, your brother's stuff to see how much work he had put in to find you, going through phone books to find your number, sending letters to, governmental bodies that are in charge of adoptions. The density of this world was surprising, and I appreciated it.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is part of the reason why I have so much optimism for the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the interactions between the characters, as I said before, aren't really grabbing me yet. But all that work that's been laid underneath is so detailed and thought out and well written that I'm like, well, I'm assuming that the series will play out that way, that it will get interesting and compelling.
The rooftop sibling beer moment didn't do it for you? Because that melted my cruel, icy heart.
I know, I stayed icy cold. I don't know what to tell you.
Claire.
I was going to say that rooftop is like basically the dream board for our wedding, just like the vibe.
It's goals, honestly.
That whole
Did it have
setup,
string lights too?
Yeah, the lights, the flowers,
the
the view. I don't know. That's kind of where I was getting at with the postcard comment of like, there's just so many like sets in this game that just playing it through the first time was like, oh, this is so good. And then going back to it, it's like, it feels like coming home weirdly. It's just like, oh, it feels so good in your soul.
Flora, enough plants for you?
Oh, you have no idea. Like, just the opening bridge alone, I was like, there's Vinca trailing, and there's all these begonias, and there's the Angelonia over there. Like, they really just packed it all the way to the back teeth.
You're surrounded by these beautiful flowers, and the penultimate sort of situation that happens is you can explain to your brother as you apologize profusely for hitting him in the face. You can either tell him about your powers and, surface level, or you can sort of obfuscate. Would love to know what everybody did in this situation, because I definitely, unlike my cold, unsharing heart, I decided to tell my brother kind of what was going on, but would love to know if that was everybody's perspective.
I went with the powers this time. I think my first round, I went with past because I wanted a little more of the exposition to kind of set up who this character was. But having played this time, I wanted to see if it would shock Gabe to talk about the powers. I'll leave it to you all to discuss whether or not there really is a shock. But yeah.
I think I did the same as Flora.
Yeah.
First time around was keep things hidden. This time around, tell them about the powers.
I did the first playthrough thing, apparently, which is, I didn't think it would be that interesting. Gabe's reaction would be interesting, but I more wanted to know about Alex. So I was like, no, let's talk about Alex's past and like how we got here. So I chose to talk about the past for myself, for my own information, not necessarily for like what the character should do.
Was there anything that was revealed that was like good to know? Because I was the one who chose like tell about the power, surprisingly.
The past, it just basically details how traumatic going through the foster system as a youth is, and like just all the terrible things that happened, and it's pretty heartbreaking.
Oh, I was just gonna say, pretty accepting, pretty like, that's cool. You're a hero. You're a superhero. Yeah. And he's like, maybe hero's the wrong word. And it's like, Alex is like, I don't know. No one's my friend, and I punch people. It's sad. And then he's like, but you could like do something with it and help people. And it's like kind of setting up some seeds for potential narrative things.
I mean, let's just dive into it. Ryan interrupts your conversation and says, "Hey, he's stuck in the well." Ethan went to the mines.
Animal well.
The animal well. Ethan went to the mines. Or hey, he's disappeared. Can you help us find him? And the answer obviously is yes. So then you go to the old mines where you know that there's going to be a blasting event happening that evening. You were given a comic book earlier in the episode made by Ethan, which then provides you clues on exactly the way to make your way through the mine to find Ethan. I don't think there's anything particularly like interesting that happens story-wise in there, so I'm gonna skip right to you find Ethan. He is on a rock shelf, sort of over a ravine, and there's a tree that has clearly like been put between the rock shelf and where you are, and then you realize, oh man, the big, strong, heavy men can't make their way across the tree because it'll break. So, oh no, it is up to me, Alex, to save the day. Luke, you called it. You foreshadowed hard. This moment was interesting. Like, we're going right for the Life is Strange thing right away, huh?
What do you mean we're going right for the Life is Strange thing right away? We're
putting someone in danger, and then your supernatural abilities have to save them.
Gotcha.
And only you can save them.
Of course. But of course, only you also has the added difficulty of then feeling this young boy's terror, and then that affecting you. And basically, Alex is like paralyzed with fear that she is getting from Ethan carrying over. And then the added layer of like, oh, if it's strong enough, you can actually like see the world as that other character sees it, which I was like, oh, okay, we're layering things on of different things that we can do with this power and how we can use it in the story. So yeah, you look around and you see like basically like dark giant monsters and how scary the environment is. And Ethan's like, no, I'm going to stay right here, because if I stay right here, the monster can't see me. But then we've got a magic ring. We've got a LARPing ring of invisibility, so everything's fine.
What?
She's got her ring, because
that's how she like coaxes them out.
Yeah,
she's
like calls back
it's
to
not
the previous
really a
conversation.
magic ring. But
no,
because
he mentioned earlier like, oh, something about like comic books and
she was
magic
like referencing
equipment
his favorite character.
Yeah, that his favorite character has a ring of invisibility or something, and she's like, it's okay, I've got it. We're good. Just hold on to my hand.
I just have to mention one thing that I did differently on this playthrough than the first one. The first time through, I when you talk to Ethan originally, you can choose either this like ring of invisibility or this like fire palm thing. And this time I chose the fire palm.
This is why I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's I'm mentally calling it D&D, but it's just some comic book lore. And this time, like, Alex sort of like outclasses him with the knowledge. She's like, actually, I prefer this. And then later at the end of the episode, when she's trying to coax Ethan to like crawl across this little like tree trunk, I was wondering a little bit nervously, oh no, I picked like the fire thing, like which would like burn the tree and maybe like lose his trust. Is he not going to come over with me? But it didn't really affect it at all.
Yeah.
What'd you do with your fire palm hand thing?
She still said like she had the magical ring of invisibility, and so we just crawled over like it was the exact same sequence.
Oh, that's disappointing.
A little bit. I would have loved to see that, dare I say, branch a little differently. So.
Go ahead, Luke.
Oh, I was just going to say, on that note, the one thing that's disappointing about this episode that we've touched on a little bit is just the fact that I don't think any of the choices you make drastically affect the outcome of this individual episode. Like, you're setting up things that may influence relationships later, but nothing... The end is still going to end.
It's a canon event.
Yeah,
you can't change it.
Which, take that how you will, but...
It very much felt like watching an episode of television. Leaned that way more so than past Life is Strange episodes that I've played.
Because even something like The Wolf Among Us, which we've also played on this episode, there are more consequences which sort of carry into the main game that you have agency over. ARMS is all I'll say, or ARM is all that I will say, and people who have played that game will know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I guess I'm just, if the only thing I was disappointed is like, love the time and place and people, but it felt the most linear out of any one of these games that I played, maybe apart from a Supermassive title. Their prologues are very linear. But the whole time I was just like, this is going to go very bad. And I think it's fair to mention at this point, things go very bad, but probably not in the way that Katie and I thought. Katie, did you think that was how it was going to go down? And maybe do you want to explain what happens?
So, you walk back across the log, you have Ethan, you get back, everything's great. You are this whole time you are rope tied to Gabe just in case the log breaks and you fall so they can pull you up. You make it across. There's kind of that classic moment of like, the danger is over, and like the characters have a little chuckle with each other and like, thank God that's done. And you kind of get the inkling of like, we're doing that thing of like the false success, and then something else terrible happens. And then sure enough, a rock slide happens, because why not? And then a big rock slams Gabe right in the chest and pushes him right over the edge. And then Alex is tied to him, but then more rocks are coming, so you can't get him up in time. And then Ryan cut is like, we can't stay here, basically. So he cuts the rope, lets Gabe, whatever happens to Gabe down there in like the ravine, and you get to safety. I was not expecting that. You did get vibes of like, something is about to happen, just because, like I said, they're like that false sense of security. But no, I was not expecting that. I thought that Gabe would be around. I'm assuming he's not gone forever. I don't know. But I thought like episode 2, it'll be like continued. Gabe will be there.
Yeah, I would say that as a first-time player, that is not what I expected. Having read the Wikipedia page, shame on you, Wikipedia, for sort of putting a spoiler in the first paragraph of the thing that says, as she tries to solve the mystery behind a tragedy that happened in her life. So I was like, the kid's gonna die. And then we're all gonna be mad at Alex because it's her fault. Not your brother gets doinked in the head by a rock very suddenly and is dead.
We don't know that.
He got doinked so hard.
We don't.
I guess the only thing we know.
That's why we went right into episode 2.
The only thing we know is that Alex looks down, we presume sees him, and goes like,
because like,
she's
God.
Not like is horrified. Like she's not like,
help.
Thank God. Yeah. Like,
I just thought he's gone. Like I just thought, she can't see him. Like I didn't assume that she could see his body. I just assumed she's looking down, and it's a terrible, very deep.
That's fair.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And he's gone.
Based on what we know,
like,
that's
a
fair.
God.
Yeah.
And I would assume there'd be like a pile of rocks, like
Sure.
right, like maybe he's like under the rocks, which would also indicate he's dead.
Maybe.
But if you don't see a body, they're not dead. And you know what? In Life is Strange, sometimes they're still not dead.
Sure. Question for the group that I have to ask for. Sorry, were you next? Did I cut you off?
I don't know if your question will pertain to what I was going to add, but it's just crucially,
Okay,
Gabe had radioed and said, "Hey, don't detonate the
That's
thing
what I was gonna
to the
bring
mining
up.
company,"
Yes,
and they were like, "Heard, we're not
So
going
were
to
they
detonate
just like,
the thing,"
screw that?
and then they
we
did
got a
it
time crunch
anyway, and that is important because of mining.
Yeah. Anyway,
I don't know about
we are
you.
the same wavelength.
You say that, but I also love mining town stories. It's weird. Like, give me a story about the Rust Belt, and I'm in.
Jacob
Very
yearns for the
Until
mines.
Dawn. What's with these games and mining?
I don't know, but give me a mine story, baby, and I'm in.
Why mining? What captivates you about my old town mining stories?
Well, like, there's within mining towns, there is always a clear political divide of, like, the people that have lived with the mine and only know the mine, and they're like, wait, you want to take the mine? Screw that. And then there's the new generation that's like, but the mine is the end of civilization. So there's always that fun political clash, but also, like, mine is usually where someone goes to die to advance the narrative. So give me a mine story.
Bad things usually happen in the mines. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, they had a canary for a reason, right?
It's just a microcosm for capitalism. There's the conflict between want to make money and money oppresses us.
Yep.
So
Or holding on to the things that used to make you money, that used to be productive, and then, yes, moving forward or staying stuck in the past.
I think we're sort of at the end of the episode here, so if there's no other final thoughts, what I'd love to do is maybe for Katie and myself, since we've not played it before, I'll start with you, Katie. I'd love to know sort of where you think the story's going. And then Luke, Claire, and Flora, what I'd love to hear from you is your reactions to how we think about True Colors.
I mean, I don't really know where we're going. I mean, we're going to try and find Gabe, or we're going to try and save Gabe, or try and figure out what happened to Gabe. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we've found what is the main focus of the story. At least we have a prologue set up. We know the characters. We have our event. We're kicking off. And I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes. I have other thoughts, but I'm going to save them for future episodes. Just in general about the series. Because we've got 4 more of these to do, so.
2 things. 1, mining company is bad, and we're going to unravel that bad boy. 2, the gay agenda.
You're on to something with the second one. I don't want to be too spoilery,
Sure.
but gay agenda does persist.
Love. How far am I off on mining company?
there's
Only
always
time will tell.
a mystery
Yeah.
to unsolve or to unravel.
Love. Hey, any final thoughts about episode 1 of Life is Strange: True Colors? Flora, I'll start with you.
I guess a random final thought from me is I went back this time with the intention of getting all the achievements, which are just these little collectibles that you can interact with Alex's powers. And I didn't do any of that. I looked at the achievements from my first playthrough. I did 0 of those until the final episode, and I did 1 accidentally. I don't know how. So I would recommend anyone else playing through the remainder of these episodes to go through them, because at least in episode 1, I found that they added quite a bit of texture to the backstory. And even some of the comments y'all were making about the mines just now, I think are informed by something like the helmet that you can interact with towards the end. So just putting that out there, I think that was worth doing, and I'm glad I did this time.
Yeah, definitely.
I got phone, so I agree with you, Flora.
Yeah.
Claire?
I was going to say there's a lot you can glean from user has disabled replies on this post.
Love.
Yeah,
Claire, Luke?
I would just add, I think the, intrigue of not sure what's going to happen and not being totally invested is a good place to be as of episode 1, and I'm excited to see how y'all feel about the rest of the journey. And we also didn't talk about Valkyrie the cat in the record shop, but cute cat, great
you.
cat
Yes.
name.
Great
Needed
name.
to make sure we had that in here so the commenters don't come after us. Cause
We were just like, it's Val, yay!
we honestly, our cat MJ was almost Valkyrie. If she had been a black cat, she
wow.
probably would have been
We probably
Valkyrie
would've,
because
yeah.
of this game.
I myself have a black void, so I always appreciate black void cats in media.
I'm excited. It's been a while since I played one of these, this type of game in general, so I'm excited to dive in more and chat it up with you guys.
We got 4 more episodes of this, so buckle in, y'all. We're going to keep these episodes coming back weekly for you, so stick around the feed for episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can find all things Left Behind Game Club at a couple places: on Twitter at Left Behind Club, on Instagram at Left Behind Game Club, and in our Discord, where we have reactivated the Life is Strange channel. I actually started it with Valkyrie the cat, so if you're playing this game along with us, please find us at leftbehindgame.club/Discord. For our guests, Claire, welcome to the show. If folks want to hear you, where can they find you? I hear you do a podcast with a certain gentleman who you may be engaged to.
Who may also be on this podcast? What?
What?
Oh my
No,
god.
what?
Plot
Yes.
twist.
So I'm co-host of the Lukewarm Games podcast with Luke Lewis, and that's where you can find me.
Love. You guys have done some cool eps lately. You just put an episode up about Skim. How do we say that game? Luke, help.
We were just saying
I've been going
skim.
with Skim.
I've been
Okay.
saying
Skim.
scheme.
I think it's Skim.
Scheme. You also did one about Still Wakes the Deep. Is that the name of that game?
Cool narrative game, Soma vibes. If folks are into that sort of thing, it's a good time.
Yeah, so you can check that out where podcasts are found. And Luke, you do another podcast, I think, with a guy who's annoying, right?
I sure do. If you're not sick of listening to Jacob and I talk about video games, you can listen to Crossplay Conversations, which is a show that we do with our friend Joseph Hooper every other week. Topical video game conversations. Try to keep it fun, informative, and mostly positive. We just did our big roundup of Game of the Year so far, so that's probably a good one for folks to check out. But we're up to 26 episodes now, so nice little back catalog if folks are interested.
Flora, you put words on the internet, right?
Yeah, most of my words land on epiloguegaming.com. I've been playing a lot of indie games recently, so I'm probably going to be writing about Venba and Chia and maybe Little Kitty, Big City. A lot of thoughts on all those games, and hopefully coming in article form soon.
And I'm going to include, I haven't even told you this, in the resources, I'm going to include a little article called The First Chapter of Life is Strange True Colors is Everything I Could Have Ever Hoped For from 2021. So you'll have to read that. That'll be in the resources section of this episode.
Thanks.
Katie, where can people find you on the internet?
I'm on Twitter. I'm Lesperak, Lesperak. I talk about video games and cats, and sometimes sports. Right now, Elden Ring. That's it.
How's the playthrough going?
It's, you know what? It's doing good. We've broken through because, you know, I'm replaying entirely so that I can play the DLC the way that I intend to. So we're making our way. We're like 2/3 of the way through, I think.
Well, maybe next time we pick up the mics, you'll be done.
I would hope to have started the DLC by then, yes.
Love. We'll check in next episode. You can find me on the internet at Jacob McCourt, JACOBMCCOURT. And that's our show for now. So with that, my friends, that is one less chapter of this video game left behind.
Do you find yourself playing older games and wishing that there were new discussions about those games? Enter Tales from the Backlog. Hi, I'm Dave Jackson, and on each episode, I'm joined by a guest to break down those games that may be stuck in your ever-expanding backlog. Each episode looks at one game in depth, focusing on mechanics, story, music, and other aspects with no spoilers until a clearly marked spoiler wall in the middle. If you've played the game, go ahead and climb that spoiler wall and enjoy in-depth story discussions, and if not, jump out when we warn you and maybe go play that game for yourself. We have over 100 episodes in the feed, everything from Disco Elysium to Tunic to discussion episodes about how to get into horror games, and if games actually need to be fun, or if they have more to offer. I guarantee that there's something in there for everybody. Once again, that's Tales from the Backlog, available wherever your podcasts are found.